Let's start with, are all parasites bad?
Ooh, good question. So I would say this, all parasites come at a cost in this day and age, as you have more and more reasons than ever before to have an overload of parasites. Yes, it's really fun to talk about these on social media right now because they're gross and scary sounding, but this is actually a debilitating and devastating epidemic. And that's not too strong a phrase to say.
When most people think of parasites, they think parasites would be in the gut. How is somebody going to know that they actually have parasites?
Some of the telltale signs are sleep disruption, being more energized at night than in the morning, sleep apnea, teeth grinding, bruxism, the clenching of the jaw, TMJ, and also food sensitivities like dairy intolerances and gut pain, especially after foods. You might have an intermittent spot that hurts after meals, and that could literally be nests of parasites moving. Also, a tendency towards inflammation. Most of them are invisible to the naked eye. So it's a broad presentation. You could have some or any of those parasites. What I want people to understand, though, is if you apply a systematic approach to parasites, your symptoms that are being driven by parasites can actually reverse.
Let's talk about the connection between gut health, parasites, and bone health. How would other gut health issues and parasites play into that bone loss too?
Well, think about it this way.
If you haven't done so already, go ahead and click that subscribe button down below. It's a little red button. You punch that, and it's going to notify you every time we put out a new episode that can help you improve your bone health. And then also, if you haven't done so already, head over to bonecoach.com, sign up for the free 7-day osteoporosis kickstart. That's going to walk you through everything you need to be doing right now to get on the path to improvement and stronger bones. After you do those two things, go ahead and press play on this episode, and I'll see you inside. Welcome to this episode of the Bone Coach Show. Joining us today to explore parasites, gut health, and their connection to nutrient absorption and whole body health is Sinclair Kennally. Sinclair is an award-winning authority on chronic digestive conditions and the CEO of Detox Nation and owner of the Selah Center. As the host of the highly acclaimed Detox Nation podcast and a survivor of complex chronic illness herself, Sinclair's mission shines through her work, empowering individuals to reclaim their health and rediscover their creative potential. This passion forms the core of her commitment to guiding others to be the fullest expression of themselves. And Sinclair, it's so great to have you here today. Welcome back to the show.
Such a joy to be here with you, Kevin. Thank you.
I want you to talk about a little bit about your journey and the number of people you've helped, because you've helped a lot of people at this point with chronic digestive issues, with parasites. You've been doing detox protocols for long periods of time. So give us a little bit about the backstory there, and then we'll get into parasites, gut health, nutrient absorption, all that.
Love that. Yeah. The short answer for how I got into all this is the hard way. Like, I had to learn. What so many of us practitioners discover is that the tools that we went to school to learn are no longer enough in this day and age. So I, was a slow march towards chronic illness and had a real wake-up call ending up in the hospital. I thought I was dying, but they couldn't find anything wrong on my lab work. And I remember them thinking, oh, this is like a really interesting case. And I was fun, on the first day in the hospital. And then, I saw their interest quickly waning, is because hospitalists are there to save your life that day. And with complex chronic illness, there's not anything to grab onto. If there isn't a tumor or an organ to remove or something that shows up on a scan, what are they going to do with you? So when I walked out of that hospital, I thought I was going home to die because medicine had no answers for me. And the good news is that's not true. So many of us are living a normal life, but what is normal anymore when you think about it? Because our food has been so disrupted. And it really does start there with what has been on our plate for decades now. So as our soil health has changed and the way we preserve and process foods has changed, we all think it's normal, and we haven't been informed otherwise, but we have been essentially poisoned without our consent. So it's not our fault that we don't feel good, but it is still our job to fix it. And the more I figured that out and what had happened to me along the way and pieced it together, oh, wait, I grew up in mold. Oh, wait, I had mold in the back of my car. Oh, wait, I had mold in the basement. So that's multiple mold exposures. And I didn't know. That can lead to gut health issues. That can actually lead to bone loss over time. That can lead to neurological issues through very complex mechanisms. And we could be suffering without even understanding why. You couple that with some, dental amalgam fillings, and you throw in a soup of processed food, and nothing really special happened to me, but my life was still ruined. And I think that's so true of so many of us today, that we're looking around at each other going, well, everybody looks stressed. Everybody looks tired. Everybody's overweight. Everybody doesn't feel good. Everybody's anxious. Everybody's not sleeping well. So it must just be age, or maybe life is just supposed to be this hard. But I don't think that's true. The body's still brilliant. And, the more we uncovered the root causes that everybody's getting exposed to in this day and age, the faster, I got well. So that's the good news. I mean, I'm a giant wuss. So I know if I can do this, anybody can heal themselves. And so, yes, I had like rheumatoid arthritis and early menopause and, tinnitus and GERD and SIBO and all these embarrassing conditions and Lyme disease and tinnitus and all these things that are supposed to be just a slow march to like suffering. And all that's gone now. That's the good news.
Well, and what you said is so important. It's not usually just this acute thing. Sometimes it's a cumulative effect. It's the culmination of all these things over a long period of time. And then it may just be one thing that is the final trigger that you realize, wow, it all has come to a head and now I need to address it. So your passion really led into gut health, it sounds like, and also detoxification. So why were those such key critical pieces of improving your own health, but then also turning and helping other people with that?
Well, you'll know this from your own journey, Kevin. Like if we can't absorb our nutrients, then our body has nothing to work with and nothing to fight with, right? So that's a big part of our focus right now, because our guts are pretty much under attack every day just by default. And I don't think that's too alarmist to say. What I wish more people understood is that is fixable. That is really solvable. So we ended up focusing on chronic digestive issues in our practice because, first of all, the wins are so clear. Like the suffering is so intense, but the wins are so clear. And it's a deeply rewarding experience to help people who are like 10, 20 practitioners in, and they're like, I still have this colitis or, Crohn's or SIBO, and I just cannot kick it, and see all that roll back, in a few months. So.
Yeah. Let's talk about parasites specifically.
Yeah.
I want to get into parasites because when people hear this, they think, actually, let's start with, are all parasites bad?
Ooh, good question. So I would say this, all parasites come at a cost. That's the definition of a parasite, is that, a parasitic relationship, they are depleting you and they get to eat at your table first. And what I think is really important for people to understand about parasites in this day and age is you have more and more reasons than ever before to have an overload of parasites. And we talk about fixing that. We're not looking at trying to carpet bomb them. And we're never going to have a moment where it's like the last one waves its white flag in the toilet, like, bye, we give up. It's over. It's not about that. It's about, is your immune system strong enough to keep organisms in check and to give you a healthy balance? So yes, it's really fun to talk about these on social media right now because they're gross and they're scary sounding. But this is actually a debilitating and devastating epidemic, I think. And that's not too strong a phrase to say. What I want people to understand, though, is if you apply a systematic approach to parasites, your body can be in charge of its own self once more, and your symptoms that are being driven by parasites can actually reverse.
And let's talk about the symptoms of how is somebody going to know that they actually have parasites?
Yeah, I would call myself a parasite denier for decades. Like I thought, first of all, this sounded stupid. It sounded alarmist. It wasn't real, And even when Michael was pulling out 3-foot worms, multiple ones a day with the scolexes, so like heads, like this was not, it could not have been anything but a parasite, and documenting them every day, because of course he's that guy. I was like, wow, that sucks for you. I'm so sorry you're going through that. I don't really want to get too close to you right now. So it's going on in my house and I still denied this. So what I wish I'd understood is how widespread this is and what the symptoms are. So there's such a broad range of them, first of all. Some of the telltale signs are sleep disruption, being more energized at night than in the morning, sleep apnea, teeth grinding, bruxism, and then the clenching of the jaw, TMJ. And also food sensitivities, things like dairy intolerances that develop over time, and gut pain, especially, after foods. You might have an intermittent spot that hurts after meals or certain foods, or it might rotate around. And that's the confusing part. And that could literally be nests of parasites moving. Also a tendency towards inflammation. So parasites are systemic. Most of them are invisible to the naked eye. And many of them live throughout the body, like blood parasites. They're hiding out in your joints. They're snacking on your hyaluronic acid, stealing that from you. And so joint pain is a big one. You know, anything that, is driven by leaky gut could have a parasitic component. And skin issues are a huge one as well, because parasites are creating histamine overload in the body. So if you have histamine type symptoms where you flush, or you get rashy or itchy, or you're more sensitive to chemicals and foods than you used to, parasites can actually be a part of that. Bloating is a big one, diarrhea or constipation, anxiety is huge. Once you start learning the symptoms, you can spot people out in the world, and it's hard not to like armchair diagnose because you're watching them be rashy, itchy. They're biting on their fingernails. They have difficulty settling in their bodies. They have brain fog. They kind of look like they have ADD or ADHD. So it's very interesting, but it can be a broad presentation. You could have some or any of those. Michael and I had very different symptoms, but we were both riddled with parasites.
What's interesting is I think when most people think of parasites, they think parasites would be in the gut.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying they can be in tissues throughout the body also.
Yeah, and they have different mechanisms of action. So it's hard to generalize about parasites, except for that they are depleting you and they have great strategies for it. They like to distort your immune system and suppress it, and they love stagnation. So if you have swampy tissues, achy joints, if you're moving slow, that's the perfect environment for parasites to set up shop. They love that. So a slow moving gut, that's perfect for them. Each species is different. And yes, most of them are microscopic and they're living in the gut or they're living in the blood and the tissues. Yeah.
Let's talk about the connection between gut health, parasites, and bone health too.
Mm-hmm.
Health is relevant for our audience. A lot of women and a lot of men 50 plus that are trying to improve their bones, but they're concerned about bone loss too. So nutrient absorption plays into that, but how would other gut health issues and parasites play into that bone loss too?
Well, think about it this way. Your microbiome diversity is essential for supporting mineral absorption, right? Calcium, magnesium, phosphorus. So it stands to reason if you have microbiome distortions, of course, that's going to start impacting your body's ability to absorb and properly use those minerals, even if you have a healthy diet. So that's just step one. And then you want to consider how zonulin and leaky gut and all these other inflammatory molecules that, thrive in that kind of environment reach circulation, and those activate actually those bone loss cytokines. So that's a big deal, like IL-6, TNFA.
Yeah, will you explain some of those to our audience? What are some of those inflammatory cytokines and zonulin specifically too? Can we talk about that?
Well, zonulin has become a really popular indicator of, gut health and, a leaky gut. Is it present or not? How big of an impact is it for you? But just remember that like the presence of zonulin is not actually a root cause in and of itself. It's a response to the inflammatory environment. So like, why would you have these inflammatory cytokines? That's the root causes we need to pay attention to. And those would be toxins, stress, and parasites. Those are the drivers, just to really simplify it, of those inflammatory cytokines. So we can obsess about each one of those markers, and that's a great idea for your practitioner to do. But what I want you thinking about is what you have control over, which is how to not be a good host to parasites and how to live a cleaner life so that you're taking in less toxins per day than you're spitting out. That's good math. Let's take in less per day of the bad stuff than we're getting out.
Where are we? What are the sources of parasites? If people are taking them in, what would be the sources of them?
That's such a great question. Not to freak everybody out, but we are getting exposed multiple vectors. So anytime you step into a natural body of water, you're getting exposed to many classes of parasites. But also anytime you're standing on the ground, you can actually absorb parasites through the skin. Anytime you're in contact with pets and animals, it's easy to pick up parasites from them. Doggy kisses, hello. Also kiddos are great parasite Sherpas, because their immune system is still developing. So they're much more susceptible than we are. That's why you get the famous pinworm stories where pinworm just runs through a daycare, man, and they cannot kick it, But of course, that's jumping to the adults around them as well. And you can pick them up on surfaces, but that doesn't mean you need to get freaked out and see the world around you as scary. Like, yes, some of the parasites that I specialize in, these liver flukes, come in on raw produce as well as fish and meat. Like there's no class of food that is safe, first of all, of parasite exposure. And there's no place outdoors or indoors that is antiseptic enough to keep you from being exposed to parasites. What you have control over is, are you a good host or not? So let's focus on that. Do you have a strong immune system that's nice and balanced that can tackle both fungus and those types of overgrowths and infections, as well as these various parasites, without overreacting to environmental irritants, right? Do you have clean terrain on the inside? Meaning, are you drinking in clean water? Are you thinking about the quality of your food and playing as clean a game as possible so that you're doing organic? Because it does matter, right? And staying away from all those beautifully boxed foods that are still, really hard on the gut, because the manufacturers are allowed to add a lot of preservatives and stuff in there that your body then has to process, and it slows everything down. And a slow moving body, a slow moving drainage system and detox pathways in the body equals the perfect environment for parasites. And yes, any of you that have lived in a water damaged building or had prior mold exposure, that's absolutely going to be a complicating factor, because mold is phenomenal at shutting down your immune system. That's the perfect time for parasites to create an overgrowth.
Are there ways, as you're getting organic produce, let's say, there's still probably potential for parasites to be on those. Are there ways that you like to see your clients and patients clean that food off before they actually consume it? Hey, it's Bone Coach Kevin Ellis. I want to take one more minute to talk about, if you are somebody who was newly diagnosed with osteopenia or osteoporosis, and you're at a point where you're stressed, you're worried, you're overwhelmed, you have no idea where to start or how to get started getting confident in your plan, I want to tell you about the Stronger Bone Solution Program. Over 5,000 people have come through the Stronger Bone Solution Program, and it walks you through the exact process you need to fill in the missing pieces, uncover critical things in your plan that you may not be aware of, and help you make modifications, adjustments, and tweaks to get you to the place where you're building stronger bones. I want you to get confident in your plan so that you can focus on living life and enjoying the life that you deserve with the people you love most. So if that's where you want to be, head over to bonecoach.com/apply and apply for our Stronger Bone Solution Program right now. I'm Bone Coach Kevin Ellis. I want to see you inside this program. I want to help you get on the path to improvement and stronger bones. Hope to see you inside very soon. Let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, I like this little ozone bubbler thing. So it's a one-time investment. You just put it in a little bowl of water. And yes, sometimes you see freaky things come out, and then maybe you don't want to eat the berries, but at least they're gone. Usually it's a very, simple experience where you just see the water get dirtier and you're like, oh, I'm so glad that's helping to clean off pesticides, herbicides, dirt, and yes, the pathogens. So I like that because it's a one-time investment. You don't have to keep buying a veggie wash. And I'm always worried about those veggie washes. Like, I'm sure there's some good companies out there, but just always wonder what's in them.
And then in terms of, so once the food is in here,
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about from a parasite in the gut, damaging the intestinal lining and disrupting the microbiome. How is it doing that once it's in there? And then how do we rebuild that good, healthy state?
Yeah, it's a great point. So one of the things that parasites like to do, if we're going to generalize, for example, about gut parasites, is that they like to slow down your gut motility so that they have longer time to feed on the food, which is why you get that fermentation, that bloating in the gut. And sometimes it gets diagnosed as SIBO, so small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Sometimes it doesn't. But, that's a key strategy for them is let's reduce bile flow, which is going to help with fat-soluble vitamins and actually picking up those fat-soluble vitamins and absorbing them. So vitamins A, D, E, K, like Giardia, Blastose, Strongyloides, and hookworms all reduce your body's ability to actually absorb those critical minerals for your bone health and also, for your brain health. Like, we need those. So, that's a big part of this. They also drive your cravings. So if you're somebody that's like finding it really hard to kick the carb snacky habits, that's something to remember. Like, I had a lot of mold exposures, and so my body had a tendency towards fungus, and I really had to chip away at it over time. We do not want to do weekend parasite cleanses. Most of us are not healthy enough for that to actually help at all. It basically just kicks up a bunch of mud inside, and it's extremely inflammatory and irritating. And then you get scared and you're like, well, this is for the birds. No more of that for me. What I want is for you to have a strategy that you can use to chip away at this over time in a very doable way for you. Because we got to get realistic and think like parasites. They have reproductive cycles. They're not immobile toxins. They fight back. They can tell when you're coming after them. So we need a full strategy for that, right? So that it does include, for example, supporting bile flow. So I love it, especially for people with bone density issues. If they start using bitters before meals, really paying attention to bowel movements and making sure that they're, going to completion every day, and just using other things like maybe phosphatidylcholine, is a great one to add in so that we're just moving more bile and building bile faster so that there's enough bile in the gut when the stomach acid and the bolus of food enter into the small intestine to actually meet your meal and start breaking down those fat soluble vitamins. That alone can be a game changer. And over time, you're making it a less friendly environment for parasites for sure. And in the meantime, you're picking up those vitamins that you so desperately and minerals that you need to actually be building healthy bones.
Are there parasite cleanses and protocols out there that you feel are inadequate, incomplete, possibly even harmful if somebody does them the wrong way? Because I know there are a lot of them out there.
Yes, I would say most of them are inadequate or harmful or incomplete. I think those are fair, descriptors actually, because they're not taking into account parasite cycles and they're not reproductive cycles. And they're also not taking into account just how malnourished people are in this day and age. So when we design a parasite protocol, like in Rapid Parasite Release, for example, we have over 10 different protocols in there for every level of sensitivity, every, spectrum of symptom presentation, every level of, education that somebody has had. Like if you've never done a detox before, this kind of stuff can be intimidating. So how do you get started? So we have something for everybody versus the people that are like, listen, Sinclair, I've listened to you on 20 different interviews. I've been dealing with ropeworm for 2 years. Help me kick this thing. I'm so sick of it, and everybody in between. So the problem with most parasite cleanses is they're taking the principles of antiparasitics that used to work, like, oh, here's an antiparasitic herb. Let's just dial it up and make it as intense as possible in a marketable way, make it shelf stable, and let's try and sell a lot of it with some scary parasite pictures. And the problem with that is it doesn't provide enough energy support for the body or enough of the detox support that you need to manage this. Because when you start just carpet bombing parasites, whether it's with pharmaceuticals or those herbal antiparasitics, you're exploding parasites open in the body. So that means a huge release of inflammatory compounds. So very irritating to you in the process. And also whatever the parasite was storing for you is also going to get released and you're going to have a retoxification event. So all the endotoxins, ammonia, and parasites are good at holding on to things like heavy metals for you, microplastics, even viruses, Lyme and co-infections, EBV. That's interesting, right? And of course, mold and mycotoxins. So that's why we focus so much on excretion of parasites versus just hunt and kill, because we want to get them out the door intact, ideally. That's how you'll kick this for good, because you're cleaning up the terrain. And with every release, your immune system is getting stronger and getting closer and closer to the day where it's like, okay, I've reached the tipping point. I got this from here. Thanks for your help.
You just talking about detox pathways. So somebody has to obviously prep and prime and open up those detox pathways as they're going into this. What are the downsides if they don't? You talked about this toxin release and you're killing these parasites. What are the downsides if you don't have the detox part of this right? Hey, it's Bone Coach Kevin Ellis. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Bone Coach Show. If you're finding it helpful, please leave a positive rating and review. Hit that like button, subscribe to the podcast or the channel. That lets us help more people and reach and serve more people. And it also lets us know that this is helpful to you on your journey to better health and stronger bones. And then also, right down in the show notes, you can actually find a link to my free Bone Healthy Recipes Guide. That's going to give you access to some amazing and delicious recipes to support your journey to stronger bones. And then also we have a link to my free Stronger Bones Masterclass in the show notes too. And that is the 3-step process that has helped people in over 1,500 cities around the world get confident in their plan for stronger bones. Over 110,000 people have taken part in this, and it's been really, really helpful for them. And I want you to have free access to it too. So add your name and email right down there in the show notes, get access to that free Stronger Bones Masterclass, and let's get you confident in your Stronger Bones plan today.
Yeah. So you actually see this in like a lot of the social media channels where they're talking about parasites. They talk about these big flare-ups that happen when they don't do this properly. And it can be scary for folks. They have like surges of skin rashes and anxiety and headaches and sleep disturbances. And just because you did not do the prep work properly, nobody taught you how. So we have people going through really intense parasite cleanses that are still working full days, kids under 5, doing all the things, doing life. And yes, they're taking these pills, but they're in balance. The pills are in balance with each other to protect the body. So that happens easily. So a lot of it is about pace and groundwork.
What are some other things that we haven't talked about as it relates to parasites and gut health that you think are important for the audience to know?
First of all, if you're dealing with chronic conditions and nutrient absorption issues, then I really encourage you to look into this deeper. So any inflammatory symptoms, joint pain, muscle aches, fatigue, brain fog, sleep disruption, I want you to know that we're getting really good at talking about hormones, aren't we? And that's really wonderful as a culture. But part of what's missing in that picture is that parasites are actually great at driving hormone dysregulation. And hormone dysregulation in and of itself is not really a root cause. It's more of an expression of distress. Just like osteoporosis is not a root cause, it's the result, right, of these other factors, of gut health issues, of exposures that would have interrupted your body's ability to absorb your minerals and use them well. So I want you to get smarter and smarter at being really discerning. Have I found my root causes yet? Am I spending enough energy and time on those? Or am I spending all of my energy still playing whack-a-mole with my inflammatory symptoms? Because that's where you'll be frustrated with the pace of your progress, even if you're doing, everything right. And just understand it's a process. Like, we're not trying to kill all these little bugs in a weekend. What we want is to set the right conditions in place so that you can chip away at this problem so you can feel like yourself again. That's the whole point. We don't need to go through life afraid. We just want you to feel like yourself again.
And I know you've helped thousands of people with this. So you're speaking from pretty solid experience, and you've got a clinic expansion that's taking place now where you're helping even more people. But you talked about something, you mentioned something called the Rapid Parasite Release.
Oh, yeah.
Could you talk about that for just a minute and just share with everybody, what is that? What does that process look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. So Rapid Parasite Release is our system for getting the bugs out that don't belong so that you can feel like you again. So it's the only nervous system informed, histamine informed, parasite cleansing protocol out there. And we provide, like I said, over 10 different protocols in there for every level of need and every budget, different groupings of symptoms. So if you heard or recognized yourself in any of our conversation today, it's definitely worth a look. It's our DIY program. And then, of course, you get group support and cheering on in the forum. There's like over 20,000 conversations in the forum. It's pretty epic, actually. It's kind of legendary at this point because everybody's sharing pictures of their worms. And, you don't have to share your pictures, but you can come in and lurk and learn a lot from the people who have come in before you.
Well, thank you so much, Sinclair, for sharing this. And I think what we'll do is we'll link to this Rapid Parasite Release inside the show notes. You'll be able to find all of that, everyone, over at bonecoach.com. And again, I'll link to this below the episode. Sinclair, do you want to share with everybody where they can find you also?
Sure, I'd love that. So you can find me on Instagram, Sinclair Kennally, 2 N's, 2 L's. And where else can you find me? detoxnation.com. That's where I do a lot of blogs and, videos for you, just explaining the different root causes of why you may not feel so hot and, supporting you with free materials for that.
Fantastic. Sinclair, thanks so much for your time today. And for everybody listening, you can find all the resources, show notes, everything mentioned here today over at bonecoach.com. We'll see you in the next episode. Hey, it's Bone Coach Kevin Ellis. Hope you found that episode helpful and that you enjoyed it. Just one last reminder, if you haven't done so already, head over to bonecoach.com, sign up for your free 7-day osteoporosis kickstart. It's going to tell you everything you need to do to start getting on the path to improvement. Hope you found this helpful. I'm your Bone Coach Kevin Ellis. I'll see you soon.